Welcome to the Friday, June 26, 2020 edition of the Clemson Dubcast. Hope everybody out there is doing well, safe, and sane as much as possible during these crazy times. It's been a cool escape over the last few weeks to catch up with a bunch of these former Clemson players for the In Their Words series, the ongoing In Their Words series. Had Woody Dantzler earlier this week. Just could not be more impressed with that guy and a number of the former players who are weighing in on the state of the program, how football helped them overcome some major obstacles. Stanley Hunter in particular, who we had on the podcast earlier this week. So great stuff there. We hope to continue as long as possible for the rest of this summer at TigerIllustrated.com. Free trial being offered right now. Free access for the rest of the summer. So if you haven't already taken advantage of that, do it now. The title sponsor of the podcast since the very day we began, Parham Smith and Argentine Law Firm in downtown Greenville. I've known Blake Smith for a long time. I guess about 10 or 12 years ago, he helped me with the situation involving some possible medical malpractice, gave me some great advice, and it wasn't just preferential treatment. That's how he and his staff, which includes Brooke Archenhold, handle every case. They are founded on a dedication to helping injured individuals throughout South Carolina. Free consultations. Phone number 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com, P-A-R-H-A-M law.com. If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Okay, 2 interviews today. They were both recorded several weeks ago, Roman Fry and Dalton Freeman, and we will start with Mr. Fry. Enjoy.
And I'm right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. 2 kids now. I work in healthcare and have done pretty well there. And, man, just enjoying the time right now, quite honestly.
Great. How old are your kids?
I got a 5 and a 3. And my daughter's 5, son's 3. So he's rocking his Clemson gear already. He's ready. He wants to be a football player, so, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, I now run I'm the vice president of go-to-market for Care Allies. We're ranked number 1 in the country in value-based solutions for providers. So if you think of fee-for-service years ago, remember Obamacare,
Yep.
the Affordable Care Act, the big message there was a lot of components, but the key thing was moving physicians away from I only get paid when I see you to I get paid on the outcomes, and I'm willing to take risks that I can help you get better.
Uh-huh.
And that's the arena I've played in. And we actually organize these physicians to get better contracts and to be successful in value-based care, meaning outcomes over, it's quality over quantity, basically. And it's interesting in that arena. We've now there's an interesting crossover of sports because these people are hiring. You're going to see one of my folks out of LA, and I'm close with. He goes, we're seeing sports teams potentially hire chief medical officers to worry about the conditions of the fans going forward.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he's like, I think it's going to be a thing. And then there's some crossover branding opportunities is the other area they're focused on, which is, the association between, a sports team that's respected and then an affiliated brand of a hospital system or an insurance company and so on. And there's a lot of spend moving to that arena versus traditional channels that healthcare used to spend on to advertise. It's kind of interesting. I had I obviously was at the top of the game at the time where I was actually ranked, where they offer you insurance, NFL insurance on your body at the time. There's an advisory board that does that. Okay. And I was projected to go in the 3rd round. Gil Brandt, the famous Dallas Cowboys GM, had me rated as one of the top 3 guards in the country. and I actually didn't take out the insurance. Okay. I was like, I thought kind of, I could, wouldn't be injured. Things are all good. Never had a major injury other than broken hands and fingers. Obviously ended up getting injury, and that injury was worse than most people knew. I had a full knee reconstruction with, even a cadaver LCL and some innovative, kind of an innovative surgery. And I ended up, the Falcons doctor, guy named Dr. Gologly, did the surgery, and I ended up rehabbing for over a year. And what's funny is Bus Cook became my sports agent at the time, who represented Brett Favre and Steve McNair, and tried to help me along the way. I needed him more than he needed me as a client. I'll say that. But interestingly enough, I decided to kind of reinvent myself in a way, and Rick Stockstill offered me Rick Stockstill, Russell Patterson used to be at Clemson. They offered me a job to be a strength coach and support special teams at Middle Tennessee State University, and while I could rehab there too, right? It was kind of a win-win. Do it for 7 months, do it for a season. So I ended up there. At the same time, I still had this desire to play. So I kept rehabbing and working out, feeling pretty good. And the All-American Football League started up. I don't know if you remember this. Remember they had like Birmingham and places like that in 2008.
Oh, wow.
And I was working. I at the time I had left Middle Tennessee State, but after that decided I did just football. I needed to kind of step away from it for a minute. I graduated with a technology and HR degree, knew I could do other things, needed to step away. Nathan Bennett, you remember Nathan, one of my former teammates, he's a character and a half, right?
Oh, yeah.
Nathan, says, you're coming to me with this workout, whatever, down in Birmingham. I go do it, and I do pretty well at the workout. We just went, honestly, to go have a good time and party, to be quite honest, right? We're going to hang out in Birmingham. We enjoyed the night. It was awesome, right? And he showed up in Tennessee, said, you're coming with me. So, okay, great. So I'm going with him at the time. Well, I end up doing pretty well. You pass block and run, and I was good for a day, but what the coaches didn't know is the next day I could barely move my knee, okay? So I go to work at the time at Mercedes-Benz of Nashville. Okay, so I start selling Mercedes. I needed to make money in the short term because Bus Cook offered me a job to be a sports agent, and he hadn't hired anybody in years. Said, want to offer you a job sports agent. Pretty cool, right? Top agent in the game, getting an offer, right? And he said, do you have a master's or a law degree? Well, no. Well, so I started online classes, but I said, where can I make money in the meantime to pay for the online classes so that I don't have to be in debt? Well, I went to Mercedes. I felt my path was led there. And I started selling, vehicles at the time. And it's not uncommon, right? A lot of the football guys, they follow that track. I don't know why, but it just happens, right? Maybe you got some charisma or something, and you end up. So I end up there, and, while I'm there, I get a call. I got drafted third round of this league. Okay. Then the economic is nuts. I'm literally eating pizza in the break room, and I'm like, I get this call. Hey, it's like the NFL draft where the GM calls you. They did it the same way, and I was just totally caught off guard. I really didn't think nothing of the workout, but I got drafted in the third round. So I actually quit my job and getting ready to go there, and they were offering $60,000 for 6 games. Not too bad if you're still, wanting to play. Well, and I'm training harder than ever, and then the league folds because of the economic depression. Okay, and everybody lost their jobs at the time, right? So then I'm still in shape, still got this desire to play, and Bus Cook tells me, hey, the Denver arena team's interested in you. I know you never wanted to play arena, but you got to have film, right? So at that point I go, we're practicing on the infield of a dog track, okay, with one of my high school teammates that's still an aspiring rapper. All right. That's what I was working with. And literally when we got off the field, I bet on dogs and was hanging out. And I'm like, that in that moment, I got to tell you, Larry, I retired. I was good. I got on the plane and I went home and I had complete closure from football and all of it together. And, the desire, though, is still there. I had opportunities to coach. My father was actually a coach. And you go, should I have been a coach? And you question that for a minute. Every football season, you're like, you're loving it, right? You want to be in it, and you had some, avenues to go that way. And, I got in, I had a guy walk in one day and said, I see your technology and HR degree on, hanging. What are you doing here? And I kind of told him the story. He said, would you like to be the first employee of my company? I just started a consulting firm, and I left a firm called Ernst & Young. Well, next thing I know, I got into consulting where I'm solving problems for companies, right? And was really good at it. And I ended up leading our national sales, and had delivered, a pretty good amount of work, and got it, kept rising through that arena of business consulting, where it was a company has a problem, you solve it. And it's what's funny, it's like a challenge. It lended itself to, playing week to week, where you have to have a game plan, right? And you have to look at what the other team's doing. And there was still that sense of it that I felt that. And then the sales was also a challenge, right? To where you're driven by somewhat of a challenge. So those two arenas, like, it connected for me. And then I found healthcare, obviously through my experience, through my knee injury and having good doctors. If you're playing football, you're around healthcare a lot more than you realize, right? So I had a heart for the patients and in respect to the doctors. And I started excelling really well in that arena. Now I work for Cigna, that owns Care Allies, and lead go to market for them. Also deeply connected in all of our home healthcare strategies. Where we believe the future. A lot of it, consumers are going to want healthcare in the home. So we do that. Think of house calls in 1940. 1930s, 20s. I led. Worked in that arena, led strategy for that. But it kind of been a wild ride, and stayed in Nashville after Middle Tennessee, and met my wife here. She didn't know anything about football. She's from upstate New York, and she came back for the first time to Clemson and was like, "Didn't realize you were pretty good at this." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. Didn't realize how big it was." So, that's what I'm doing now. I'll still help athletes on the side here or there. And advise, I can't tell you the number of phone calls I'll get here or there. My son's thinking between 3 colleges. You have any advice, and in my hometown, by the way, Reed Carrico, who's a linebacker, he's rated the #1 linebacker in the country coming up next year. That's my high school, Ironton, where I came from. And they've got several D1 players, so it's cool. I go back there. I spoke to the team last year. Had a chance to speak to Clemson, 3 years ago, on life after football, things like that. Because honestly, I was kind of an at-risk guy, if you will. A little bit wilder, right? Was known for being tough and wild at the time. And, being able to reinvent yourself and, be successful and translate those skills and that experience into another arena is somewhat rare. And that's what, that's honestly what helped me. And I talk to guys all the time that played. Some of, the minority of them will have that. Others, as you know, don't, right? It's what I could have been, should have been, could have been, if you will. And, it's I have a heart for those folks and want to make sure that our former players go on to do really good things. So I try to, any opportunity I have with them, I jump at it. So I just gave you a more than a mouthful. I know we want to transition probably to where the program's at now and Dabo, and got some good stories there.
Yeah, so you said you spoke with the team 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago. And, they have a panel that comes in every year and speaks to players. I remember Dexter Lawrence shaking my hand and absorbing my hand. But it was, and what was cool is everybody paid attention. You could quickly see the culture from being the outside coming in. They have a career day, and they have guys brought in that were, some that had done things the right way their whole career, right? You have your surgeon that had, just being completely right the whole time, and, a student the whole time they're at Clemson. You have somebody that got kicked out of Clemson, as a player, what they're doing now. And then you had somebody like me that was somewhat, I was kind of on the bubble, a little bit more edgy, and what are you doing now? So it just talked around your path, and the players paid attention. That was really cool to see. And I love the culture Dabo's built. What was really neat to me, I'll never forget this. I came back years later, right? This is years after I played. Dabo was receivers coach when I was there. We always had mutual respect, right? But, when you come back years later, you go, what's the relationship now? Does this person remember me? So on. I'll never forget. They're getting off the bus, getting ready to do the Tiger Walk. He comes and just picks me out and comes and hugs me. And it wasn't like just a quick hug.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, I care about you, spent time. And I actually met my wife, took her on the field, and just, made a memorable experience. And just taking the time with even me, I'm like, man, look at that culture. And, I know he does that with a lot of other people too. But you see that, you don't see that with Nick Saban's of the world and others, right? It's a little bit more standoffish. The engagement is what differentiates him with, alumni and others. It's the engagement and authenticity, I think, are the two words that stand out to me, where I'm like, that's where Dabo comes in, and I understand why he's successful in recruiting. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you could see him being indebted to, say, his first team he had when he was a head coach or something, but even to the guys who, preceded that era, he still has a genuine appreciation for guys like you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, having that connection to your university is rare, right? Usually when your head coach leaves, you don't have that, it's a new group. But having Dabo there, you still feel like it's at home in a way. And the respect, I think because I think there's a level of respect, even if he was, throughout probably his career, if he was receivers coach or whatever, if he saw you as a guy, he'd probably want to coach that align with you culturally, right? I'll lay it on the line. I'll give you everything I got. I'll try to die playing on the field, right? But however, character's there. I care about my teammates. So I think when he sees those things, that that's what he would like to coach too. So I think if you align to where his values were, where he was very clear about it, even when he was an assistant, there's still that respect there and that alignment.
So this was during a game weekend that y'all came back?
Yeah, it was a game weekend. I can't even remember the year, but it was. I think it was about 3 years after he had taken on the job. I'm wanting to say it was. Was it 10? It might have been 9 or 10. Actually, yeah. 2 years. Well, that would have been 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Yep.
Gotcha.
But still, just even I went back this past year, 2 years ago, to see the new place with my wife and kids, and Thomas Austin dropped everything he was doing to I played with Thomas, but, for a year, and he personally just dropped everything he was doing to give us a tour. And it's just, and then I've got a ton of respect for Brad Scott. Brad and I were really close. So
you follow the program really closely, you would say?
Oh yeah. As much as you can, I follow it and go to, usually a home game a year and a away game a year. And, still had stayed tight with Brad Scott, who was the toughest, who didn't allow cursing, didn't allow eating in the room, was a disciplinarian, and I think he ran me more than anybody in my lifetime. He did. You missed class, you got 6 a.m. with the coaches at the time, and but I have a lot of respect for Brad and really enjoyed him over the years.
I guess when you hear that Tommy Bowden is out, was it a surprise to hear that Dabo was the guy? Because Brad Scott had been a head coach before. Vic Koenig had been a head coach before. What was your reaction when you heard that not only that Bowden was out, but that Dabo Swinney was the new head coach?
Smart move.
Yeah, really.
The first thing that came to my head, honestly. Yeah, I remember going back to a game and being around, other friends and fans, and them going, I remember the team wasn't doing so good. I think it was 2008. We'd lost a game that I was back for, and, everybody was kind of negative. We should have went from the outside and so on. I said, guys, you don't say that. You're sleeping on this guy. He's going to be really good. So I think there was the minority of people that knew what he was about, and that with the right players, he'd be successful. So I wasn't actually surprised. I knew Vic, and I knew, Brad, obviously. There's this quality, it's hard to describe when you see somebody that's ready. It takes, they got to be ready, and you got to have timing's everything, right? And you got to have the right timing, the right situation, in the right moment, and the right people to make the decision to put him in that spot. And everything it all aligned, right? And I don't think you would have called it from the outside. If I'd asked you a year before that, who would be Tommy's successor if he had a bad year, you wouldn't have called it. But, being around Dabo, I can't tell you I was as surprised as maybe others would have been, because as a player, you get it. You know who's got it and who doesn't, right? I mean, you see who's going to be really good and got those intangibles.
How do you wrap your mind around where the program is now, how far that he has taken it?
You wish it had happened in years earlier, right? Right? But, no, you wish it had happened years earlier, but no, it makes you so proud. I mean, I can't tell you the number of meetings I walk into or people I meet when they see Clemson about more than putting it on the map, making them dominant, and there's this respect that comes with it. And I'll also call out not just sport, not just football, but academics too. If you look at our success academically, you got smart players, right? And whether you went there 5 years ago or you went there 20 years ago or 50 years ago, people associate what's happening now with the past. And so they go, okay, well, you're a sharp guy. That's a sharp guy from Clemson, right, that played football. Their program stands for a lot more than just athletics. They stand for culture, diversity. They stand for academics, right? And that perception follows. So it's very interesting to see that happen, especially in the business world or when you're getting interviewed or something. It's something that's not called out a lot, but it actually makes a huge difference and people pay attention. And it helps get notoriety for the school itself. But seeing where he's taken it to, I know he had a vision. But to bring it to here, it's beyond anybody's wildest dreams, right? I mean, it takes so much to happen to make that happen, to create somewhat of a dynasty. I mean, who would have thought that it would lead here now? I mean, so much has to go right. One thing I think that he's doing that I don't see anywhere else, that I constantly call out as a differentiator, is the retention of key coaches and the payment and that they get, right? If you look at that and the assistants, how smart it was to have two offensive coordinators, and if one leaves, one goes. The succession planning and the retention of key staff is rare right now, right? Everybody jumps at the next job, they go take the payment, but is there something that's going to keep them? Obviously, you got to be financially whole to keep. You got to keep them with the finances, right? But it also has to take more like culture, family, etc., to keep you somewhere. It's not just going to be the money. He's found a way to do that. So I really think his differentiator is retention of a lot of the key staff, at least from what I see, right? Because that leads to recruits feeling confident that their coach is going to be there a year from now, and so on. So it creates a sense of security, and these are great talents. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then you look at the talent that's been replaced. I think they've had their eye on people for years. And when the timing's right, they can strike. And being the number one team in the country, somebody's going to listen, right? So that obviously helps.
What's one of your most memorable stories from back when you were at Clemson?
Well, there's a difference between what we can put in print and what we can. Oh, man. Give me like 10 seconds.
Sure.
Because I got so many run through my head. I'm like, how many are appropriate? How many are not? Wow.
I mean, it doesn't have to be G-rated. You can. It could be a little edgy.
Yeah. No, I like the edgy. I'm thinking through a few right now. Man, I gotta hold on just a second. What? Okay, tell mommy I'm on the phone with the interview. Okay. All right. So, man, a few. I'm thinking of God. Let me give you one that's funny. I don't know. That's got a little humor to it, probably. God, I got so many here floating.
Take your time.
I'll give you 2 slices, all right?
Okay.
One was, I'll give you one to make fun of myself slightly. That was pretty funny. I had one where we're playing against Miami. I think it was 2005. I had been really good at guard, but we needed more center help too. Dustin Fry was the center, and we needed just some, a way to sub out if he needed a break or whatever. And we've been practicing with me at center, and Brad Scott's, thinking about the next level for me too, and knew that I could play, maybe be a center in the pros too. So I start playing, center in practice, getting some reps and looking pretty good enough to where the coaches had confidence to put me in the game at center. So we're playing Miami. They're really good, right? At the time, Keith Willis at linebacker, ended up being a draft pick or so on, and really good team. And I felt Charlie Whitehurst under center, in the formation that we were in. I'd been slightly uncomfortable shotgun snapping. Okay, felt really good under center, no problem. So his hands were underneath me, and I'm kind of intense in the moment. It's hot. There's a lot of stress going on. Defense is moving around, and think I get everything cleared up. That all this happens within 3 seconds, right before pre-snap. Well, what I didn't know is Charlie had checked off, and when he did, he moved into shotgun. I thought he had checked off and stayed under center. And I'm making a last-minute call to, call where we're going to slide our offensive line so that we can pick up their guys, right? Our 5 on their 5, right? Wherever they're coming from, and that's your job as a center. You got to make sure you're calling. You make sure Charlie doesn't get hit. There's a lot that happens there. So I'm calling. I think I still feel the pressure underneath me. I snap the ball, and immediately I realized he was in shotgun. And I snapped the ball right between my legs as hard as possible. And next thing I know, I got all these Miami defenders jumping between my legs to grab the ball. And I watched the video, later on, and Brian, Gracie was one of the commentators. And hey, we've never seen that before. Well, he just snapped it to himself. And Charlie luckily dived between my legs and recovered the fumble. And that was one of the most embarrassing moments of, my life that had happened. One of the best on the other side of that was I remember playing against Florida State in 2016 in a game, and we ended up winning on a last-second touchdown, as you'll recall, with James Davis running for a touchdown. I'll never forget. There's this play where I've got to keep blocking the play. I've got to reach the defensive tackle in front of me and block his tail to win the game. If I don't do that, he's gonna hammer my running back. And I'll never forget, he got really low, right? He was, their tactic is to surge underneath you and surge you into the backfield, right? They're trying to shoot your legs out and take you into the backfield, creating a pile, and then then they jump on the running back. Well, he ended up getting super low, and I'm talking like his chin was probably 9 inches below the ground. Well, I put mine lower. And if you ever look at this on video, there's a video of it out there. I got down to about 3 inches below the ground, where my chin was 3 inches off the ground, and ended up blocking him and clearing him out. And then we scored.
101 left, a gain of 18 yards. Can Proctor get them in field goal range? And if he does, will they try it?
Well, we showed you that graphic the last time Clemson won here in 1989. The quarterback of that team was a fifth-year senior as well.
To the 30. Davis. 10. Down to the 2. Holy cow.
You know what Clemson did there? They had mass substitutions, and then they lined up and went on a quick count, and they caught the Florida State defense unaware. Look at all the defenders standing up. They lined up and went on a quick count and fooled the Florida State defense.
What a call. Now they're going to mark this closer to the 4 where his knee went down. Now, if you had confidence in the kicking game, you could just sit down a couple of times, let the clock run, and kick it. But they don't. Davis straight up the middle to the 1.
I think you use the timeout here, maybe. There's 42 seconds. Nope.
Well, they certainly don't have to rush.
Florida State trying to sub now. 3 new defenders coming in. It might come a quick count again for Clemson. Here it is.
Davis dives. No. They'll mark it a couple of inches away, and now you have to use a timeout.
Well, they haven't yet. Now they do. With 11 seconds left.
Oh, man. What a finish.
They went on the quick count again. They almost fooled Florida State again. He tries to reach for the goal line and down just outside the chalk.
I don't know if Tommy Bowden would kick it from here or not. I don't know.
No, I don't think he will now. I think at this point he's going to go for a touchdown. And if he doesn't get the touchdown, then he'll make that decision in overtime.
The last 2 times he has tried to kick placements, it cost him 2 points on a blocked extra point, and it cost him a touchdown on a blocked field goal. Famar, Ray Ray's younger brother, really having a ball at this one.
Well, there's 11 seconds left, and he's got 1 timeout. So even if they run the football here on 3rd down, if they don't score, they can call a timeout and get 1 more play.
Tell you what, the size of the bugs that are flying in this booth, I thought the Bloomin' Onion 1 came in here for a second.
I mentioned in 1989, the quarterback for Clemson that day was a guy named Chris Morocco. He was a 5th-year senior just making his 3rd career start. Very similar to the story of this guy, Will Proctor.
3rd and goal. Davis, the tailback.
That's offside.
And Florida State jumped across.
They can't move it any closer, but that was definitely offside.
That's when you get a free shot at somebody.
Prior to the snap, offsides by contact, 96 on the defense, half the distance to the goal, still 3rd down.
That's a 1/4 of an inch on the penalty. I don't know how you keep that track of that statistically. Third and goal. Davis, touchdown. Alex Pearson led him from the fullback spot, and Davis hammered his way in, and the Clemson offensive line did its job. 19 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns for Davis, and what a drive, Todd.
Oh, unbelievable. And the play that fooled the Florida State defense, the quick count where they ran off on the sideline, got in formation, set it up, and great poise by Will Proctor and the Clemson offense in the last 20 seconds.
Now Dean will kick because it can't kill him. The worst it could be is a 2-point play. Better protection, and he knocks it through. 8 seconds left in the game. Clemson by 7.
Well, let's go back and look at this touchdown. A couple great blocks. First, you're going to see the left guard, Roman Fry, get underneath and make a great block. Then you're going to see the 2 tight ends right here lead it all the way through. You see the guard get a good low block, and then Thomas Hunter, 89, and Alex Pearson, 41, drive them back into the end zone, and Davis takes it in for the touchdown.
Boy, Pearson's was a beauty.
Unbelievable. What a drive. Every play in that drive was a James Davis run.
And then on another funny side of things, remember going on spring break the year before my senior year with Will Proctor, Cool Downer, and a bunch of guys. And They always had a good time that I would wear a Speedo out on the beach as an offensive lineman and wear a cowboy hat everywhere I went. So it was the hit of spring break, and spring breaks were always fun. And Nathan and I, one year we went to Panama City and decided to play King of the Ring, and where there was a circle, and they had these guys that thought they were pretty tough, and throwing anybody out of the circle came in, and next thing I know we're in there, and we're taking on as many as we can at a time, back to back, and we stayed as King of the Ring for no joke, 5 straight hours. I don't know how we did it, but we literally, you know what I'm talking about, where you draw a circle in the sand,
yeah,
and seeing who can. And we literally stayed out there for 5 hours, no exaggeration. A few beers involved in there by far, and we blocked everybody out of there, and we ended up playing King of the Ring, and Clemson's offensive line won the day there. So we made our statement in Panama City. I don't know if Coach Scott knows about that. So there was some crazy behavior during our time. I'm learning that the players now don't do as much of that,
yeah.
Which is probably a good thing. But we didn't have a whole lot to lose, and we had a pretty good time.
No camera phones back then.
No camera. no camera phones. You're exactly right. Which helped, but that was always fun. I actually got to see Nathan the other day. Back for the national title game in Louisiana. So we went and hung out together, and first time I'd seen him in a lot of years. But I still keep in touch with Charlie too, Whitehurst. Saw him in Utah about a year ago. Last January, we went skiing. I've never been skiing, but I figured it out.
That's great. Well, the snapping story, that's not as embarrassing as Tommy Sharp puking on the ball against Georgia in 03.
Yeah, that's worse. That's worse. Yeah, that was he caught a lot of hell for that, But God, I'm sure I could think of a million stories. Those are the first ones that come to mind. I don't know if they're the best, but that's some good ones that come out there. Other than I remember fighting I do remember when I was a freshman, Nathan and I, we never, no one from his family had been to college at the time. And, my dad had went to college, but I was from kind of a rougher area of West Virginia, Ohio, and it was just getting a different experience for us. And I'll never forget, him telling me, he said, hey, it's our first day here. I hear that if they try to haze you, I'm not standing for it. I'm going to fight our tails off. You got my back, I got yours. And it felt like we were in prison, right? So we go out there. I'll never forget, second snap of the day in full pads, J.J. Howard tried to uppercut me, and I fought his tail off. And we were in more fights in the first 5 days than I think any freshman had ever been in. We fist fought. They called us the new breed, and I'll never. In one other great one, I don't know if this is publishable or not, but my father at the time had lived in South Carolina and was a teacher and a coach there. Wanted to be close around Clemson, whatever. I remember we had mandatory study hall freshmen, and the seniors liked our style so much, they called us the new breed. Nate Gillespie and Cedric Johnson and these guys, Derek Brantley and these guys, they liked us so much that they, would come just hang out with us and have beers. And while we were at study hall, told them to hold down the fort. We're freshmen, we're on campus. And, I got Nate outside smoking a Black and Mild, having a beer. My dad shows up. He don't know these guys, right? My dad shows up. Where's Roman and Nathan at? Well, who's asking? Well, it's his dad. They're at study hall. We're holding down the fort. You want a cold beer? So that was my freshman year. Now under Dabo's watch, this stuff ain't happening, I don't think. But at the time, that was kind of reality for us, man. But we garnered respect just by being rough. And Tommy loved it. Tommy loved that, man. Tommy loved the fight. He used to tell me, he said, I haven't seen you fight in a while. I'm like, we'll get back on it, Tommy loved that.
That's great.
He wanted that. He wanted that going on, and you can't publicly come out and just say, hey, I want our players fighting each other. They don't want that. But what his point was, he wants toughness about the team. And if you're practicing hard enough, you're going to have some altercations, right? That was his point. But, he enjoyed that,
Do you have an opinion or a take on on football being played, on them moving forward toward playing this season amid all the concerns with the virus and all that? Do you have a sort of a position?
Working in healthcare, I'm a part of COVID task force and things like that, where we, look at helping our physicians, helping members, helping patients, and so I keep I have to have a daily pulse on this of what's going on, and I will give you my best take here is you have to think community by community and think more local and regional than you do national. I mean, I think national gives you some data points, but you have to think about where you're at, what's the number of cases, is it worth the risk, right, of having people in a large social gathering. You got to know your local statistics. You got to know your regional, because you got to remember people are coming from all over the place, and South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, even myself from Tennessee. You got to think of that factor. People coming in from the outside. Where are they coming from to come to your game? I think once you understand those elements, you can make an informed decision. But I do believe, this is me speaking personally, I believe that football season will go off without a hinge unless there's a, spike in an area. I know LA County has talked about extending through July, right, which affects UCLA and other teams. So, nationally, the challenge you're going to face is it's going to be local and region by region, in making decisions of where games are going to be played. So I think you could end up with a scenario where you may have a UCLA play in more away games than home games. I think that's probably going to be a reality. May put some teams at a disadvantage, right? And some teams an advantage if you're in a good area where you have more home games. Obviously, that's for the NCAA and the conferences to decide, but I'm sure that's being discussed. But I do think, back to my key point, which is region by region, that's how you got to look at this thing, right? You got to know where the hot spots are, where the spikes are, and it does make a difference. It's not a blanket statement to say everybody's good to open nationally. I think, our government's even said, state by state. I even think it's further to city by city, town by town. You may see the start of the season, you may see an element of social distancing in ways that we haven't seen it before, which will create a nightmare for season ticket holders, right? You may see that, and then I think it will ease up. But it depends on the market. Helps me through. I literally, every snap, I have no regrets that I left it all out there. I'd have died on the field. That's what helps you later on, especially when you got some aches and pains when it's raining. Yeah. You remember, did you leave it all out there every down, and do you have any regrets? I have no regrets. I left it all out there, all I could give for Clemson every daggone play. And that, remembering that when I'm watching games, it makes you smile, because did you do everything you can? That's all you can ask for. And yeah, I did, and that's what was fun. I just happened to have some accolades behind it at the time. Good things happen, but honestly, it's just because you're going as hard as you possibly can.
Which game was it that you hurt your knee?
Playing against Georgia Tech in 2006.
That's right.
October 13th. But, at the time it was, it's so frustrating. But my wife was asking me the other day, she said, what was one of your best football memories overall? And, it's funny, I was a part of the Big 33 football game. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Ohio versus Pennsylvania. They select the best 33 from Ohio versus Pennsylvania to play each other in Hershey, Pennsylvania, It smells like chocolate bars the whole time you're there, and it really does. It's a trip. But I got to meet one of my favorite mentors. One of the favorite people that I wouldn't even call him a mentor, but one of the people I respected and wanted to follow was Chuck Bednarik. You remember Chuck Bednarik?
Yeah.
Got a chance to hang out with Bednarik, and the coaches knew I was a two-way player. So in high school, I played all positions, and I had offers at both offense and defense, and at different positions on offense and defense. And I got a chance to meet Bednarik and hang out with him. And this guy, I'm thinking, he's wearing his NFL Hall of Fame jacket, whatever. And by the way, right beside me is Joe Paterno and Jim Tressel and Jeff Hostetler. So cool, right? I was named a team captain. And the players on my team was A.J. Hawk, Bobby Carpenter, some names you'd probably remember, Nick Mangold. But I was named as a captain on all my teams, and so it's really cool. So I was meeting Chuck Bednarik, and he said, hey, this is Roman Fry. He's a great player on our team, and Mr. Bednarik, he's one of your fans, one of the last two-way players. He's a young guy, and not many people, know what it was like when you played. I said, I watched all your films, so I want to be like you or whatever. And he pulled me offside. He said, you really do. You really did, didn't you? I said, yeah, I have, sir. And he pulls me off the side. He goes, all right, let me give you the real talk. He goes, and I'll just give it to you like he told me. He said, I'll tell you how to break my off. He said, you grab them by their neck. He said, see, he grabbed my neck. He said, wherever I take your ass, your body's going to follow. He said, I used to break off at their neck and punch them in the throat. He said, that's the shit you got to bring. You follow me? I was like, yes, sir. And it was the craziest moment with an NFL Hall of Famer. At 18 years old, I thought I would ever have, and he gave me like real talk, and I was like, holy crap, this is wild, right? So a lot of explicitives, but just completely, you go, man, that guy was a real hard ass, which was really cool. But Bednarik gave me probably the best advice, as a player. I'm like, all right, that's the way it really goes down, I'm like, I'm trying to play like that, but he's for real, So I never quit, bringing an uppercut through the face mask when I could.
Rice is a staple in my household. Man, we must cook it 6, 7, 8 times a week with so many different dishes. Well, here's an opportunity to have an exceptionally high-quality rice, Charleston Gold Rice, delivered to your front door. Good friend Don Quattlebaum, Clemson class of 76, produces Charleston Gold Rice at Georgetown's White House Plantation in South Carolina's old tidal rice fields. The property on the PD and Black Rivers dates to 1735. My family has eaten this rice, and we love it. You can absolutely taste the difference. Find Charleston Gold Rice at GeeChyBoyMill.com. That's GEECHIE boymill.com. Phone number 843-631-0077. Also ask them about their wholesale opportunities. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archenhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Okay, joined by Dalton Freeman. Dalton, how you holding up, man?
Oh, been doing pretty good, man. We've been very blessed. My family and I are healthy, and just praying for the world right now in these crazy times.
Okay, so you work in the healthcare industry, which that's an interesting topic right now, of course. Can you maybe give some specifics on what you do, where you are, and how that's been unfolding?
Yes, sir. I actually did an internship with this company while I was at Clemson. It's HMR Veteran Services, and HMR is a management company that has the honor of operating state veterans nursing homes. So they used to be in the private side, but now they currently only focus on state veterans homes. So it's a real honor and privilege to be able to serve the veterans and serve those who served us and sacrificed so much for us. But I did an internship with them a couple of summers while I was at Clemson and stayed in close contact with them. And as I was transitioning out of the NFL, kind of back into the real world, if you will, they called me and gave me an opportunity, and I thought it would be a good chance for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and get away from athletics for a little bit. And I've actually grown really passionate about it and have enjoyed it. So I'm based out of our corporate office, which is in Anderson. So I'm still local and still close to Clemson and get back to a lot of the games and a lot of the other events. But Clemson will always be home, but we're living in Anderson and just really happy to be around the area.
How did you get involved with the internships with them?
So one of the guys, he was actually a regional vice president at the time. He is now the vice president of the entire company. He was my spiritual mentor when I got on campus through the spiritual two-a-day program that was set up through our chaplain, Tony Eubanks, at the time. So he was actually one of the first people that I met when I got on campus. So he and I hit it off, and he was having a lot of success in his company and wanted me to kind of come check it out because he thought I could be an asset. And next thing you know, here we are 10, 15 years later, whatever it is, and, I'm involved with him. So it's actually a really cool story how we got to know each other, and now we actually work together.
So can you take me to, I guess, back before everything turned upside down? I guess that would be maybe, I guess, February, early March, and what sort of your job entailed sort of every day, and then just how drastically things began to change for you and what you're doing every day.
Yes, sir. So as I mentioned before, we operate state veterans homes, and we operate 10 facilities in 4 different states, 1 in Maryland, 2 in South Carolina, 4 in Alabama, and 3 in Texas. So I was traveling a little bit to each one of those facilities, but my role, I'm the director of training and development. So I work closely with our vice president on the operations side, but really kind of doing more on staffing and retention and employee relations, and really trying to create a good culture for us and find a way to keep the ones that we do have and go out and find other ones to kind of fill some of the vacancies. There's a lot of turnover, especially in long-term healthcare, but just in healthcare in general. And we have a unique opportunity serving the veterans. So a lot of people feel very passionate about it and want to work with us. It's just a matter of getting our message across. But I would travel a little bit, and obviously travel has been halted right now. We're not allowing really any visitors into the facilities, just out of safety for the veterans and the residents in those homes. And, when this thing really hit the fan, we were getting new guidelines and regulations every hour. And, it was just something that we had to work around the clock on to try to keep those guys safe, men and women safe, and just follow the CDC guidelines and the VA guidelines and the state guidelines. And then we started shutting things down, and we're no longer admitting patients. We're hoping to get back to that soon, but everything we're doing is just out of the safety of the veterans, and just want to make sure that we take as good a care of them as we can.
While most of the country, it seems like things have changed for the better as far as the virus not being as widespread as feared, and with the gradual relaxing of some restrictions. How have things relaxed, I guess, significantly in your realm at work?
I would say a little bit, but not much, because we are caring for geriatrics. They are the most vulnerable group. So even if things completely open back up, I still think we will be 3 to 6 months, maybe even longer, behind the curve, because we're going to have to go above and beyond what the normal population might be able to do, because the people we care for are the most vulnerable. So we're going to be very careful and take our time with it. We've gotten very creative as far as FaceTiming and Zoom meetings and different things for the residents to be able to communicate with their families. And that's really the hardest part in all of this. I think the families feel good and the community feels good to know that we are taking such good care of them. But, it's human nature. You want to see your loved ones. You want to visit with them, and we're trying to get creative and figuring out a way to do that. But I'm hoping things settle down quicker than expected. But, even in our population, I think it could be a little bit of time.
So you obviously have a deep connection to the elderly, and then on the other hand, you have a deep connection to college football. Does it feel conflicting at all to sort of, on one hand be, so cognizant of all the dangers of one segment, and then on the other, sort of that innate feeling of, man, I really hope we have college football this fall?
Yeah. I mean, football is all I've ever known. Going back generation after generation, my granddad's granddad, I think, played, and my granddad played at North Carolina and then App State after he got out of the service. My dad played college football at Wake Forest, and my brother played football at Newberry, and I obviously played at Clemson, and this is all I've really ever known. And then all of those not only played, they coached as well. So naturally, I just assumed I would be right in the middle of coaching and athletics for the rest of my life. And I'll never say never. I definitely have a passion for it, and my heart will always be in athletics. But it's been an awesome opportunity for me to step away from it for a little bit, because I was so entrenched in it for so long, especially in the NFL when it became such a business. It's been great to kind of take a back seat and to kind of recharge my batteries a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm more nervous now as a fan than I ever was as a player, watching the games. And especially now, I've kind of got that fever that the fans get. And I just cannot imagine a fall without football. So I'm really praying that we have a lot of breakthroughs, and this warmer weather kind of kills it off a little bit. But yeah, I cannot imagine a fall without Clemson football.
It's been so interesting talking to former players, particularly players who went to the NFL, and sort of hearing their reflections on what it was like when it was over. Talked to Ricky Sapp, who said he went through like 2 years of depression, trying to figure out who he was, and numerous stories like that. Not all of them are like that, of course, but what was it like for you? I guess you were in the NFL for 3 or 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I played for 4 seasons and was kind of staying in shape and had a few workouts kind of going into that 5th year. But, my rookie year, I sustained a high ankle sprain, and that kind of sidelined me, but I was able to be on the practice squad. And then my next year, I was active both of those years with the Jets. And then after they let Rex go and they got a new GM, they kind of cleaned house a little bit. And that's when they let me go. And then I ended up signing in Houston. And ironically, that's where my offensive line coach was. He left New York and went to Houston, so he brought me with him. I spent a little over a year there, and then going into training camp that 4th year, I tore my groin pretty bad and probably should have had surgery, to be honest with you, but I tried to tough it out and ended up doing an injury settlement with them after being on the IR for a couple of weeks, and that freed me up. And then Rex brought me back to Buffalo to be with him. And then he got let go again. So my career kind of started and ended with Rex, and my career went as Rex's went. But it was interesting because I knew I wanted to play in the NFL, and that was always a dream of mine. And I got there, and it was a great opportunity. It was a huge head start on life, and something I will always treasure. But I do think I'm happier now being on the backside of it, because it is such a business and it's so hard on your family. Unless you're one of those elite guys that is guaranteed to make a team with a guaranteed salary, you kind of walk in there every day not knowing if you're going to make it, not knowing if you're going to go to practice that day. I actually remember, it's funny you bring up Ricky Sapp. I actually played with him in New York on the Jets. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking out to practice on Ricky's birthday. I'm pretty sure it was Ricky's birthday, and they let him go. they cut him and said, hey, we just got to move up a DB. You know, we don't need an outside linebacker this week. We're going to bring up a DB, you know, just hang around. We're going to try to sign you back in 3 or 4 days. And that was it. So then he went home for 3 or 4 days, and then they called him back and they re-signed him. I mean, it's such a business, and they move people around so much. And, you know, they're numbers, but all of those numbers are names, and they have families, and it's just, there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with it. But, you know, I'm definitely happier now that I've had the opportunity to do it. I've kind of been there, done that, and I'm on the backside of it.
Did you immediately know what you were going to do, or did it take some time?
No, it definitely took some time, and I had several opportunities. I considered getting into banking and the investing, financial advising side of things. I looked at commercial real estate. I had a lot of opportunities in athletics. Considered going back and becoming a GA in either strength and conditioning or on the field. And then there was this healthcare thing that I'd already kind of had my feet wet with, I guess. And it just seemed like a great opportunity. It's a great company. I can't say how awesome of a company it is, and how great the guys and men and women I get to work with and serve every day. So it just seemed like the right thing to do, and I'm so glad I did it. Like I said, I really wanted to try to challenge myself and get out of what I knew and do something completely different, and this was definitely that, and I have not regretted it.
You know, there are some college football programs out there that are run like organizations, you know, very business-like, maybe on the colder side, I guess. Dabo Swinney's program, not like that. So I'm wondering what it's like to go from that to the NFL, where it is very much a business, and just such a stark difference in sort of the overall, I guess, spirit of the team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you know, that's the unique thing about Clemson, is that the people love you and care about you so much. I mean, they're all so genuine, and you become part of a family, and it's not something you can really describe until you experience it. I mean, even to the recruits, I'm sure it's kind of visible to them, and they might try to sell it to them, but it's not really tangible until you're a part of it. And the longer you're around it, the more, you know, you feel it, because it's a real thing. But Coach Swinney really does run a tight ship, and it's very structured. And I think that's why so many Clemson guys are having success in the NFL right now. So the family environment and putting the arm around you and loving you, you know, that side of it's there, which may not quite be there in the NFL. But it is very structured, you know, from on the field to in the classroom to in the weight room. Everything they do, you do it with a purpose, and it's mapped out, and they've got it down to a science to really maximize your college experience and get the most out of you. So it was an easy transition as far as being prepared, but as far as, you know, the love and family atmosphere, that was a little bit different. But I will say, Rex Ryan, my rookie year, I was very blessed to kind of transition into somebody like that, because he was a player's coach. He was loyal, probably almost to a fault sometimes, because he did love his players so much, and he would always take the bullet for us. So I had a slow transition to it. There was definitely the wake-up call on the business side, but I was blessed to play for somebody like Rex my first couple of years.
You bring up a really important sort of nuance with the perception of Dabo. You know, the casual college football fan probably thinks of him as nothing but a smiling, laughing, joking, sort of quote unquote cheerleader coach. But people who know better and who are more attuned to the way he runs his program know that he's got some Nick Saban in him too, like behind closed doors now. He runs a pretty tight ship, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can probably say he has coached me harder than any other coach that I've had, and at certain times, and I have seen him coach harder and get on somebody with the best of them. I mean, he does not tolerate laziness. He doesn't tolerate somebody not giving effort, because those things don't take any talent. You can go out there and try hard. Even if you mess up and you're trying, he can tolerate it. He can coach you. He can get you in the right direction. He can teach you the plays. He can teach you the footwork. He can teach you all those things, but he shouldn't have to coach effort, and that's something he doesn't tolerate. But yeah, I mean, just because he's not out there screaming and cussing and belittling you, that doesn't mean he's not coaching you hard, because you will see him even on game days. There's been plenty of times where the camera's kind of panned to him and you see him chewing somebody out. So I can promise you it's not always, rainbows and butterflies with him. He's going to get the most out of you.
He always does. You talk about the camera panning to him going off on some player. His trademark is he goes in a second time.
Or a third or a fourth.
He'll walk away and then come back, and it seems like that's sort of his hallmark, the hallmark of a Dabo tantrum.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it is, I think it's kind of like when I was growing up with my dad. If he was mad at me, I could take it, but when he was disappointed in me, I'd rather him just beat me and whip me and just, whatever. But for him to just look at me and be disappointed, and that's the thing with Coach Swinney, because he really is like a dad to all of our guys. And he cares so much about you, you don't want to disappoint him. So when he gets that mad, it's normally because not only you did something silly, but you just kind of, better. Like, why would you do that? Why would you disappoint me? And then it comes back, and then he comes back to you. But you know what? An hour later, 5 minutes later, after the game, after the practice, whatever it is, he is going to come up to you and put his arm around you. And discipline is a form of love, and he's just, trying to get the most out of you. He's not doing it out of a negative place, and I think people get bent out of shape. And like you said, they're so used to seeing him smile and just be this cheerleader type coach. But that's not real life. So to see him go after somebody, I think is actually good, because it shows that he does care enough about them to get on them when they need to be getting on.
What's the maddest that you ever saw him when you were on the team?
I'm not sure. There was a few incidents kind of here and there, but I think as a fan, what was it, the punt against, was it Oklahoma that year in
North
the playoff?
North Carolina in the ACC championship.
Dude, yeah, that's what I think. Just watching him, because that was kind of early in my transition as well. I just remember sitting back laughing, watching that on TV and just, thinking, well, here it is. Now the whole world's going to know. But, it's something, like I said, we've known and seen him do for a long time. I mean, he will come in a position meeting and get on you just like he's the offensive line coach. He's going to go in the running back room or the quarterback room or the DB room. I mean, he is very, very involved, which is something you don't see out of most coaches. And he knows every position. He knows everything that's going on. And it just holds you accountable. And like I said, because he cares so much about you, you've got a deeper relationship than just player-coach. It's more like a player-mentor, player-father type role. You want to perform your best because you don't want to disappoint him.
Yeah, you're right. He is so attuned to every detail. The notion that he's more of a CEO type of coach, it's just not true, because even he's an offensive guy, but even during games, like he's in there in the huddle with Brent Venables talking over, talking before Venables talks and down and distance situational stuff. He just seems really dialed into all that.
No, very much so. And it seems like a lot of times if I do get back to a practice or, if I'm kind of walking around the facility, he's always studying the defensive side of the ball. And I find that interesting. I think he knows offense so well that it really kind of helps him on the defensive side be able to game plan and adjust against what they're going to do offensively. And it's just fun to watch. But he loves the game and he loves the kids, and he's got such a great staff that they all have his personality. And, even going back to the Coach Morris hire and some of those early hires, they weren't the biggest names, but they were great people. And he wanted great people that he could surround himself with, just like players. he wasn't going to recruit the kids with attitude problems and discipline problems. You're always going to have a few. But he wanted to recruit the right people, players, and coaches, because that way he could teach them what he wanted them to know. And I think that's why we're having so much success. It's because he's got the right guys on the field and in his staff room.
What was your recruiting process like?
Mine was very interesting. Going back to my dad, he was my high school coach. He was our athletic director and high school football coach, head coach, and he played college football, and I was very blessed to have about 30 different offers. So he and I hit the circuit. I mean, we visited a lot of different schools. He wanted me to see everything and kind of make the best decision for me. And I'm so appreciative of that. He never put any pressure on me to go to Wake Forest or to stay in state. You know, we went all the way out to Colorado and Nevada and visited different schools just so we could see what it was like. So it was interesting, but because I saw so much, I feel like it all kind of started to blend together. It seemed like after a while, everybody had a cool stadium, or there was, you know, some cool gear, or jerseys, or, you know, whatever that selling feature was. It all kind of started to blend together, and what really separated Clemson for me was the people. Now, ironically, I waited till Tommy Bowden signed a 7-year extension, and that's when I decided to commit. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to Clemson. I for sure going to have my coach for at least 4 to 5 years. And he was gone pretty soon after that. And I love Coach Bowden, but, you know, the hire of Coach Swinney was definitely a blessing in disguise at the time. And what he's been able to build, those first couple of years weren't easy. And I think, you know, some people forget that. But going 6-7 and losing to South Florida in that Meineke Car Care Bowl in 2010 was tough. But, you know, that's really what kind of kickstarted us, and we knew we didn't want to be a part of anything like that. And that's really where I think the turning point was for the program. I don't think, you know, obviously the 4th and 16 and the year before when we thought we were there, we started out 8-0 and then lost to Georgia Tech. You know, we thought we were there that year, and then beating LSU and kind of breaking through after the 4th and 16. All of those things were huge and monumental, but I really think it started after that losing season to South Florida.
You redshirted in 2008. It was such a tumultuous season, but did you have a grasp of it, or were you just still trying to process being a freshman? You're being at your first fall, you know, on a college football team. What was your sort of window into that?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind. There was so much going on because transitioning from high school to college is a big adjustment, and taking those classes, and then you have, you know, I think we had a mandatory 10 hours of study hall with, you know, all of that going on, and just trying to manage your time, but also learn a foreign language in that Clemson playbook at that time. You know, it was so different than anything I'd ever done. So it was a big transition, and I was kind of on that bubble. I probably could have played a little bit, and then there was the Bobby Hutchinson, you know, kind of fiasco where he was going to sit out and help coach, and then we had another injury, and then he ended up coming back, and he ended up playing some that year. So I was kind of always on that bubble of either coming up and playing or redshirting, and I just remember having several meetings with Brad Scott, who I love dearly and is probably the reason I came to Clemson. Just talking with him about it, and I was that undersized athletic guy, and it would have been tough, and I realized that when we opened up against Alabama and saw Terrence Cody run out of the tunnel. I realized it was probably a good thing for me to redshirt and to get in power hour with Coach Batson and put on a little bit of muscle.
Did you have a sense that in the Georgia Dome that night that what you were watching was sort of the birth of the next college football superpower with the Saban Bama juggernaut?
I mean, I was, again, young and kind of just transitioning into it, but you could tell there was a difference. I mean, we were highly touted and had a lot of hype around us, but you could just see a little bit of the difference in Alabama and Clemson on the field that night. I don't think it was necessarily coaching, but maybe just a little bit in and the size and athleticism. And that took us a couple of years to kind of recruit a little bit different. And now anytime we step on the field, I see it. I mean, we're the juggernaut. I mean, we're bigger, faster, stronger, and definitely better coached at every position. And it's just so much fun to watch. I'm just so glad that we're cycling out and not getting any of these good recruits anymore.
That's great. Harris Flooring has been a major part of the facilities enhancements over at Clemson, not just with athletics, but also at the university level. And we are thrilled that they are a part of the Dubcast as a sponsor. Since 1947, the Junkins family and Harris Flooring have provided a unique shopping experience through value in their services, developing the right product solutions, and delivering on their promises. To check out some reviews on their work, just go to their Facebook page, Harris Flooring America. Rave reviews, just first class all the way. Phone number 864-642-6183. If you're a business owner and your business involves credit card processing, you need to reach out to Tandem Innovative Payment Solutions. A lot of different ways that Tandem can improve your bottom line by shaving off some of those expenses. In addition to processing credit card payments, Tandem also manages inventory, schedules staff, tracks sales, gains insight into customers, and gets transaction reports. With Tandem, you're not a number, you're a neighbor. Learn more about Tandem at tandempayment.com. Happy to have Founders Federal Credit Union on board as a sponsor with us. If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. You mentioned Brad Scott. Okay, so when Tommy is out and Dabo is in, Brad had been a head coach. Vic Koenig had been a head coach. So the conventional move to promote an interim would have been, we'll promote one of these two former head coaches. Was it a total surprise to you that the guy was this receivers coach who had never not only been a head coach, but had never even been an OC?
Yeah, 100% complete shock. I assumed it was going to be Brad Scott and was even a little bit excited, if there was any kind of silver lining in the middle of all this chaos. Because, again, you got to put yourself in I guess I was 18 years old at this time. I mean, young, just coming out of a small town where we had one stoplight, just country town to Clemson, college football, the real world, wait till Tommy signs a 7-year extension to him getting let go. I'm like, well, I have no idea what's going to happen, to having a little bit of peace, because the reason I came to Clemson was because of Brad Scott. And like you said, he had been a head coach. He had been an offensive coordinator at Florida State and had all that success. And I just thought that was the natural fit, at least temporarily, to kind of get us through that year on an interim basis. So I really had a little bit of peace about it. But then when I found out it was Coach Swinney, everything kind of changed all over again, because I didn't know if he would want to keep Brad Scott. I didn't know if he was going to want to keep myself, maybe he didn't like me. I didn't have that great of a relationship with him at that time. I knew him and we had talked several times, but you really just have a strong relationship with your recruiting coordinator and your position coach, and both of those are Brad for me. So I didn't know what to expect. But I remember after that first meeting where he addressed us, and that first practice that we had, he was different, and I could see why they made the move they did, and I don't think they regret it.
It's interesting. You think the turning point was the 2010 season, the low point, the first losing season in 12 years. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of success in 2009. 2008, that was the transition year, and we beat South Carolina, and that was great, and that's really probably what got Coach Swinney's job. And then 2009, we had some success. That was my first year starting, Kyle Parker's first year starting. And, we were kind of hit or miss, but we just didn't have the talent. I mean, we had some solid guys, but we just didn't have elite playmakers. I mean, we had the C.J. Spiller and a few of those guys that really made a difference, but we didn't have, 11 of those guys like they do now. So we did okay, and we found our way to the ACC championship, and really we're a couple of plays away from winning the ACC, which is crazy. We just couldn't find a way to stop that triple option. Paul Johnson that night down in Tampa. But, then we go into the next year and we're trying to figure things out. We don't really know how to win because every close game we lost. And I think it's very interesting. You go back and look at Auburn that year. We're playing in Auburn. We're beating them maybe 17-3, something like that. I mean, we're running the ball right down the field. Jamie Harper's having a great game. And then we kind of get into overtime and things don't work out. We got the long snap. I think Matt Skinner double clutched it, and then we dropped I think we called it waggle right or something. And kind of, I don't know if that was Deron Brown. We couldn't convert on that 2-point conversion. And we end up losing that game in a nail biter. And then we go on to lose every game that was really close. Auburn went on to win every little game that was close. Now they had Cam Newton. They had a lot of things going for them, but we didn't know how to win. We were learning. We were trying to figure it out and get in those difficult situations. Then the next year, we're 8-0. We're doing great, but we still are just kind of like, hey, well, this is fun. This is the way it should be, But we really didn't know how to approach every game and every day with a blank slate. And it was just kind of all in the learning process and creating a culture of winning and expecting to win. But, kind of competing against Clemson because we were so focused on who we were going to play. I think sometimes it kept us from playing our best because we were trying to play to the opponent instead of just playing our best game. And that's when best is the standard came around, and you see that on the practice field and the indoor, and I think every press conference Swinney alludes to that. So it was really just kind of the transition process on learning how to win and building the culture.
Did you know how hurt Kyle Parker was after that Auburn game and through the season?
I had an idea. Yeah, he and I were pretty close, and being the center quarterback, we spent a lot of time together, and I had an idea. I don't think I knew it was as bad, but he is one tough guy, and I just love him to death. So glad he's doing well, and had a good career in the MLB, and then was able to come back to Clemson. But yeah, I don't think many people knew. I think you could see in that moment when he took that shot at Auburn, but. He was tough as nails, and he was never going to let you know it.
Chad Morris was such a force of nature and helping change the culture of the program, but then Elliott and Scott taking it over. Just wondering, sort of, what are the biggest differences you see in the offense, I guess maybe stylistically, in the last several years compared to when it was a Morris offense?
Yeah, I think it was growing to where it would be now if Coach Morris was still here. I certainly think Coach Scott and Coach Elliott took it to another level, but there was so much learning going on those first couple of years, and we were so focused on playing fast that we kept it pretty simple, especially up front. Our protections were very basic. And then, we got some game changers in there at quarterback and with Deshaun and Trevor and what they've been able to do. They've been able to take it to a whole nother level and really understand the big picture. So from a protection standpoint, they've gotten a lot more complex, which has been good because they can kind of make adjustments on the fly and taking a little bit of pressure off the center from setting the protections and changing things around. But I've been very impressed with them because, they just continue to build on it each and every year. But they're still trying to find a way to make it simple and understandable and relatable to the kids, because you can make it as complex as you want, but if the kids don't understand it, you're not going to be able to execute. And I think that's what their Coach Morris really brought in and what Coach Scott and Coach Elliott have been able to capitalize on is just the kind of understandability, the ease of language, and the ability to just comprehend it. I think that's the biggest difference right now.
Is it almost something where when Morris was here, the tempo was such a brand, and it was an equalizer against teams of equal or better talent, whereas now it's just basically like our guys are better than yours and we're going to be simpler?
Yeah. I mean, I think we still like to play fast, but as you mentioned, that was kind of our secret weapon, if you will. As you said, it was a good equalizer for us. And now we don't have to do that. You can see times where we're trying to play fast, but whereas before we were just playing fast, and even if we didn't have a great look, we would still try to force it and hope they just weren't lined up yet or would, be a little bit tired. Now you'll see Trevor or Deshaun, in these past few years, they're going up to the line and changing the play. They can see that, we may have a over defense on this side and we want to run it to the short side of the field because the safety's playing over the top, or, the outside linebacker's kind of cheated out. So we've got a 5-man box instead of a 6-man box, and we could run it over here to the short side. And a lot of those little adjustments that needed to be made back then, we just didn't pay too much attention to because we were trying to go so fast. And I think that's why, especially like in the Georgia Tech game this year, you saw some of those big runs in the opener because we were able to change some plays and really take advantage of what the defense was giving us.
So it sounds like you're following the program really closely still.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to most of the home games, and I was able to make it to a couple of these national championships and, watch every away game as well and try to be as involved as I can. And Swinney's had me back to speak to the guys, and I'm involved with the Paul Journey and the FCA. And as I said, I live in Anderson, but Clemson's always going to be home.
As someone who was there at the beginning, what is it like? What's your take on the program now and just what it has become? I mean, it's something that probably nobody, maybe except for Dabo, envisioned back in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, we all had dreams and we all believed that we could kind of get to that next level, but I don't think anybody probably except Coach Swinney, because he is such a visionary person and he stands on his faith and never shies away from anything. Nothing that's ever too big from him, and he still believes the best is yet to come. But it's unbelievable to sit back and to think about where we were. My redshirt year, coming out of the tunnel, looking at Alabama, and seeing the difference in talent. And then that next year to being pretty good, and then having that very humbling year, going 6-7 and losing to South Florida the way we did, a team that I really thought we were better than, but we just couldn't really put it all together. To think about where we were to where we are now, it's unbelievable. And you got to give all the credit to Coach Swinney and his staff, and their ability to recruit guys that believe in the system and believe in doing things the right way. And I'm just so proud of it and proud to be a part of it.
What's your favorite behind-the-scenes memory from your time at Clemson?
There's so many. I mean, it's such a unique place. My favorite on-the-field moment might be beating Miami in overtime in Miami. That was monumental for us. My favorite off-the-field moment was probably winning the intramural softball championship. We were loaded with Willie Corn and Xavier Dye and Spencer Shuey. I mean, we had a lot of great players. We had the tallest first baseman in Clemson history with Matt Skinner being 6'7". You could just throw anything and he was going to catch it. And my job was just to get it over the mound. It was slow pitch softball, so I would just pitch it and get out of the way and then go hit a few bombs. But, just so many great memories on and off the field. And then I met my wife there, and now we have a beautiful daughter who's about 1.5 years old. And it's just a special place. They say there's something in those hills, and you can't really understand it until you're around it, and just so blessed to be a part of it.
It's interesting you mentioned the turning point being 2010, whereas I would have thought you would have said that LSU game in 12. I think that's one of the popular moments that people cite, as the program was turning into a monster. Would that LSU win rank maybe a close second, or do you view it less in terms of one game and more in terms of like a season?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, it's way up there, and I can't think of a better way to end my career. If we would have beat South Carolina, that's one of my biggest regrets and things that just kind of haunts me is I was a 4-year starter but didn't have the opportunity to beat South Carolina. I mean, that eats at me, especially being from Columbia and growing up with the rivalry. Not that I was really on either side of it until I got to Clemson, but that hurts. But ending my career, beating LSU the way we did, and just kind of watching the program catapult to a new level, trust me, that means everything to me. But, it's kind of like people show up on Saturdays and they watch us play under the lights, but they don't see all the hard work. It's a year-round thing, all the lifting, all the meetings, all the running and dieting and the strict discipline that goes into it all year round just for those few Saturdays. And to me, that's really what that 2010 was about. That season when we went 6-7, we were working our butt off. We were trying so hard, and that was really kind of the peak right there after we lost to South Florida. It changed the way we, worked. It changed our preparation. It changed the way we ate. It changed the way we lifted. It changed everything, and we were learning so much so that we could perform. And when you got to the LSU game, it was all starting to kind of come together. But there was a lot that happened before that. And just like on Saturdays, when all the fans come out and watch us play, there's so much that happens, and there's so much preparation before that. That's why I say going back to 2010 was really when it started. That was kind of that pivotal time.
Y'all going into the LSU game, y'all just lost to South Carolina, and y'all trying to get ready for, the real grown man, sort of the personification of the epitome of grown man football in LSU. Were those the most brutal practices during that December? Those bowl practices as y'all were getting ready for that game that you can recall?
Yeah, we always practice hard, and it was a little bit different. I think you could feel the intensity, but again, at that point, we had really just started focusing on ourselves, and I think that's when the transition began. Is when we were focusing on ourselves and just trying to be the best Clemson we could be, not worrying about LSU or not trying to play to LSU or to do, all the little things that we could do to exploit them. It was about just being the best Clemson that we could be. But practices that were definitely tough. I think that was kind of in the transition of, where we were still going to practice hard in December. We were still going to be in full pads, and we were still going to have the Oklahoma type drills, or the Paul drills, as Coach Swinney calls it. And, that physicality and intense practice, because normally for a lot of programs, by that late in the year, you're dialing it back. You're trying to stay healthy. You're not wanting to bang too much. You're not really tackling in practice. And, we were ramping it up because Swinney really believed you're going to play how you practice. And he didn't know any other way coming from Alabama and the Junction boys, but to go full speed. So I think it definitely helped us.
Well, Dalton, I know you're busy with work, so appreciate your sharing your time, and congratulations on fatherhood. I know you're probably a great dad, and really enjoyed interviewing you back when you were a player, and it's great to reconnect.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you and all that you guys do, and just so blessed to be a part of the Clemson family and meet special people like you and all the folks at Tiger Illustrated. So I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks to Dalton Freeman and Roman Fry for sharing their time with us. Also appreciate our 7 loyal sponsors for being a part of the program. Please patronize them as much as you can and all your local businesses that you love and treasure. And most of all, thanks to all y'all for making this a part of your listening routine. Everybody have a safe and great weekend. Cheers.